matters listed under the,
Sorry.
that's okay. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. So would anyone like to remove one of the items for discussion?
I have a question about the statistical reports.
Okay, let's pull that out. And anybody else? May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay, let's do a vote.
Okay, President DeWinter,
Aye.
Vice President Hill,
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Mash,
Aye.
Trustee Dr. Chin,
Aye.
and Trustee Lynn Harris.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lynn Harris, why don't you raise your issue on the statistical reports?
Yes, it's not about, thank you very much, Chair DeWinter. It's not necessarily about any of the data that's presented. It's more about what we could look at in the future for comparison's sake. Right now, we are looking at the current fiscal year. So we see in this instance, August 21 versus August 2020. I'm wondering if it might be more beneficial to compare 21 to say fiscal year 19, because 21 and 20 doesn't particularly, I have no frame of reference because of what went on in 20, but maybe 19, looking at 19 versus 21 might give us a better gauge as to how things are recovering. That's all I have.
Oh, thank you.
And I, just following on Trustee Lynn Harris's comment, I had some of the same thoughts when it came to James's report about the 2021-22 targets. I'm sure you've spoken about it, but how do you provide a little more context given the fact that last year was so unusual?
Oy. I'm not sure which reports you're speaking of.
You're going to make a presentation later on.
Oh, yeah, yes.
The work.
Well, I had planned on, as far as, speaking about our work plan, I had planned on making a comparison to last year, largely because our work plan will carry over from last year because there are numerous things we couldn't do because of the pandemic. As far as Rod's suggestion, I think that's possible. I just think we would just have to figure out the logistics of how we could, prepare a report that I would have to work that out with Mary Kwan, the head of our technical services, as far as how she could compile a statistical report that shows 18-19 instead of 2021, or if she could compile a statistical report that maybe has all three, 18, 19, 20, 21, and as well as how we're doing this year. So all I can say is, and Lisa, I don't know if I answered your question, so let me know if I didn't, and if I need to provide more information.
We can talk about that later on. That's
Sure. But I can follow up with Mary just to see how possible that is logistically. And if we can't do something like on a monthly basis, like we're doing with these statistical reports, maybe we could arrange to have a portion of a meeting dedicated to reviewing 18, 19, 20, 21, and 21, 22. So my response is, let me see what's possible to see how that could be arranged to provide you better context, Rod.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Anyone else? Okay, I think we can then go ahead and take a motion to approve the statistical reports.
I so move.
I second.
Great, thank you. Let's do a vote.
President DeWinter,
Aye.
Vice President Hill,
Aye.
Trustee Dr. Chin,
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Nash,
Aye.
Trustee Lynn Harris.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. On to public comment. Persons wishing to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda may submit to the recording secretary a request to speak form. State law prevents the board from taking action on any matter not on this agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for further review. So do we have any members of the public who wish to comment?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to old business. So the first item, or I guess it's the only item under old business, is the report on the Art Donation Committee and analysis of proposed statue donation to the library. So as you know from the last meeting, Trustee Lynn Harris and I formed a committee. And just as a refresher, Vince and Jackie Simonitis have graciously offered to purchase a bronze sculpture depicting a grandfather reading to his granddaughter on a bench. And they proposed that it would be placed in front of the main library. Their intent was to provide art signifying that San Mateo is an age-friendly city and that the piece would be a tangible symbol of the library's age-friendly programming. So in the packet, we have a 3-page analysis. And I'd just like to sort of highlight how we proceeded to analyze the proposal. So the library's artwork donation policy and guidelines required us to form our committee and review the proposal using the criteria for acceptance of donated works of art. And then we're to make a recommendation to the board whether to accept or not accept the artwork. But since the proposed artwork was to be placed outside the main library, we also consulted the City Civic Arts Committee guidelines for the art in public places. So just to go through somewhat quickly, since you probably had a chance to review, hopefully, our analysis. On the second page, we talked about each of the 4 items that we were to consider, and number 1 was inherent artistic quality and duplication. So this includes originality of concept and style. And so our analysis is that while the craftsmanship and use of materials is high quality, the proposed art is not custom made. Therefore, it's inherently not an original piece. Other libraries and organizations may have this exact piece or could purchase the piece at a future date. And the other item we talked about is, you may not all know that there is a sort of similar sculpture that sits on the children's patio of a girl reading a book. And there's a picture of that on the 3rd page. So that comes into play on the second part of the analysis, which is where we considered the city's Civic Arts Committee guidelines for art in public places. So that item is context of artwork with site. So this first item, in the guidelines, it talks about meeting the social and cultural context of the site. And so we felt that since the grandfather and granddaughter are both Caucasian, that the level of customization required to add more figures and differing ethnicities is cost prohibitive for the donors, which they mentioned at our meeting. We didn't feel like this artwork met the social and cultural context. The second item was diversity. And similarly, we felt that the piece is not reflective of our diverse cultural community. And while well-intentioned, it may result in some residents not feeling included or welcome in the library. And the third item was site criteria. So this is where that small statue in the children's patio of the little girl reading the book comes into play. It's a similar piece of art in our view. And so we also solicited feedback from members of the public, which we talked about on the bottom of page 2 and page 3, some of the feedback that we got. And some mentioned that this idea of not being ethnically diverse, and people felt it was a nice piece that's traditional, but that the variety of patrons is not reflected in the statue. So just in summary, we feel like we should recommend not accepting our work, because displaying art that does not adequately represent the diversity of our community may do more harm than good. And one of the items that the Simonitis mentioned was they felt like when you walk past the library, they didn't feel like there was enough representation that this building is a library. So one idea could be to move the smaller sculpture of the girl reading the book to a more prominent location, although likely that was put on the children's patio intentionally, as it's in memory of a former librarian who had passed away, but who I guess worked for many years at Burrell Middle School and also volunteered her time with the literacy program at the library. So we'd have to look into that. And we also think it's possible that that sculpture is sort of permanently affixed to the cement, maybe can't be moved without possibly causing damage. So Trustee Lynn Harris, I just kind of rattled that off, but if there's something you'd like to talk about, and of course, if anyone has questions, or we'd be happy to discuss our analysis more. Yes, Lynn Esselstein, you're muted, sorry.
If Lisa would like to go first, I have another sort of question from the public, if you prefer. So if you want to give the platform to your fellow trustees first before I ask my question.
Okay, we can certainly circle back. Trustee Diaz-Nash.
Thank you. And Trustee Lynn Harris, did you have any comment before my question?
Oh, certainly, just for a brief few seconds. It was just a very interesting exercise to, kind of evaluate the piece both on kind of tangible and intangible factors. And the tangible factors, such as the quality and permanence and such, I found it certainly fulfilling all those, as Chair DeWinter mentioned. It was the intangible nature of the actual piece and the representation and the perception that it provided was the kind of the determining issue. But I feel very thankful to this Simonitis, if I pronounce that correctly, for the commitment to the city and such. But just, as was mentioned by a couple people in our last meeting, and then as you can see reflected in a few of the comments, there was a little bit of discomfort with kind of what was represented. So that's all I have. But thank you, Chair DeWinter.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I had a couple of questions I'd be interested in your discussion. Number one, where does age fit in diversity? Because in James's report, age is very clearly called out as one of the criteria that the library is trying to address when it comes to diversity. And it's not in the specific criteria, whether maybe it's the library's artwork donation policy. So how do we square that with what's actually going on? Because I think it's a very important criteria, and I think it should be called out and be discussed and be there, particularly if we're an age-friendly city. That should be something we need to absolutely recognize. And I guess the next question is more a question for maybe for the ages of and all of us, that if we're, and I believe very strongly that we need to represent our community, no question. But how do we do that is the only way to do that, either to have if we're going to have literal people, have a large group of people so that many different ethnicities and genders and ages are all represented, or how do we do that? Do we just have abstract art? Or do we say, that we're going to say in this particular location, we're going to raise up one particular group and in another area raise up, I mean, I don't know the answer to this, but I want that whatever we do to be thoughtful and uplifting of our entire community, but also be thoughtful and lifting up of our entire community. So there's one that's sort of a specific question and one that's more of a broader philosophical one.
I appreciate that. I would just say on the diversity topic, the library policy actually doesn't speak to that, but the city's policy is where we looked at diversity. So it's just not specifically spelled out in our policy. And so it's not like we could certainly add or revise our policy as we do periodically to include something about diversity. But from our analysis, we were just basing that issue on the city's guidelines.
Yeah, and I see.
And it is interesting because it just says diverse racial, sexual, and cultural identities. But it doesn't speak to age. So that's a valid point, of course.
Yeah. And I think given the fact that we are called out as an age-friendly city,
Yeah.
that's not something necessarily for the library board to take on as a city policy, but I certainly think it's something that should be referred over, because if we're, it should be one of the criteria for diversity.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And as far as the other topic, if you go to the library or when you go, you'll see there's a little plaque by the fountain, which it's an abstract art piece, but it actually talks about what it represents. And it sort of goes to what you're asking is all we can do abstract art in order to not leave out particular groups. And I thought it was interesting because in a way that's what was done, I think, when the library was built, that there was an intention by having this particular artist do a work, and it is abstract, but is intended to represent all who go to the library. So it's interesting. That's just my 2 cents. But Trustee Chen, I see you've had your hand raised.
Oh, that's all right. I thank you, though. Thank you, Chair DeWinter. I just have one question. I'll save my comments for after Executive Director Esselstein's question. But for the dozen community residents that you and Trustee Lynn Harris reached out to, I think just to give the public sense that it was representative, can you sort of share a bit more about the makeup, like what neighborhoods those people, obviously keep without divulging their without invading their privacy, but like roughly what neighbors they came from, or how representative they were of our community.
Yeah, Trustee Lynn Harris, I'll let you take it.
We did it separately, so I don't know what Chair DeWinter's were, but mine were, there were probably about closer to 15 or 16 or maybe even 20 combined that we spoke with. And I tried, now that's certainly not a representative sample, but I did try to ask a few from the area in which the library sits, the area in which I live, which is Beresford Hillsdale, and I did a handful also over in the Joinville area. And they were varying ages. With regard to age, Trustee Chen, real quick, wasn't your question. I want to come back before I forget. We really, well, again, I shouldn't speak for Chair DeWinter. And I think to a degree, Liz also, we did appreciate the ages that were represented in the proposed sculpture. And actually, it was kind of a source of frustration that we didn't think it could work because of some of the issues that have arisen that we've talked about and were cited in some of those comments. But that was a positive, at least to me. It was a big positive because it did represent some things that we're trying to do and some things that are just kind of innately appealing and representative of what we would hope a library would be. So Chair DeWinter can, sorry for that diversion there, but Chair DeWinter can answer Chair's Trustee Chen's question about the people with whom she spoke.
Yeah, the group I talked to represented various age groups and several different neighborhoods as well, including downtown, Beresford, Baywood, Aragon. So I'm certain if we took more time, we could have reached more people, of course. And that's a fair question that you're asking. But I think we were getting sort of the same feedback from enough people that we felt like that was a pretty good representation.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I wasn't trying to hold us to a Gallup poll standard
No.
of statistical accuracy. I think it's just, I certainly felt confident in your two's outreach efforts. And I just want to give the public additional confidence by sharing, showing our work, so to speak. And I mean, certainly efforts to look on both sides of 101 and, not just stick to your home neighborhoods, I think can give the public confidence in the findings.
Thank you, I agree. So maybe we'll go to Lynn for your comment.
Thank you. I'm curious. I know that the recommendation of this committee was made public when the agenda was published. And so I had some questions regarding any conversations you may have had with the Simonitises prior to tonight's meeting about that recommendation. Have you talked to them since the last meeting?
We have not, or I have not.
Okay. Okay.
I have not either.
Okay. So have they, James, did they reach out to you after the agenda was published? I noticed that they're not here tonight. That's why I'm asking.
Yes. And Lynn, you know what? I thought about that as this a meeting loomed. I have not spoke to them since the last meeting. I presume they were waiting to hear from us. And I definitely agree that that they need to be informed as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things was since we're just making a recommendation and we haven't voted or anything, so it seemed it's preliminary, I guess, at this point. Yeah. And discussion could maybe change things. So
right, but did they get a copy of the agenda? I'm just, so I'm coming at this. By the way, I want to say, first of all, back up and that I read everything and Trustee DeWinter, Trustee Lynn Harris, thank you very much for what was clearly a very thoughtful process. And you used a lot of resources to try and come to a recommendation to make to the entire board here that you felt would be fair and respectful of the offer. Which is what it was a donor approaching the library in an unexpected and unsolicited way to fund something that was within their budget to sort of epitomize a message that they thought the library should embrace. And so I think that's inherently a little bit of a sticky wicket, quite frankly, because this is not something that's being generated from this board. It's being asked for you to reflect back. So that was, I think you did a lot of really great things there. I'm coming at it from the perspective of cherishing the Simonitises' love for this library, as we all do, and wanting to be sure that that this doesn't catch them flat-footed. I feel like their communication when they attended the meeting was they were going to accept whatever the board decided to do, but nevertheless, I hope we give them, we deliver whatever the outcome is with a great deal of sensitivity, as I know you will, and embrace them and see if perhaps there are additional ways for us to find a message perhaps they could support, or a program that does meet the objective of celebrating sort of an age-friendly library and city that they live in. And to that point, I just want to say, maybe it's not an outdoor thing, maybe it's an actual program, or perhaps there is an opportunity within the library for them to have a special space. I don't know if we have a collection that's devoted to people who are older. I would say large print, and that would be me when I don't have my reading glasses, so it's not. But maybe there are other things that we could talk to them about, and I just want to let you know that the foundation would be happy to engage and support that.
That would be great. I agree. We certainly don't want to offend them, and we really, really appreciate they're keeping us in their thoughts, and the whole idea behind this is noble. So
do you know if they got the agenda? Do they know that this was on for this month?
I don't know, but Trustee Diaz-Nash, maybe you know.
I actually spoke with Vince because he and I are on another committee together. And I asked him if he had seen the agenda. He said he was looking over the City of San Mateo website and sort of stumbled upon it, that no one had reached out to him, and that he and his wife were pretty disappointed that they understood that it was the library board's, that they were not, that they understood it was the library board's decision. That was not what their issue was. I think they were more just disappointed sort of how it happened. But I think it was a very short conversation, and I said, I said, Liz, what you had said, that it was very much, as I understood, it was very preliminary, that we had to talk about it, that I was sure that after our discussion, someone would reach out, and they were very open about that. They welcomed that. So it was. I don't want to overplay, but they are aware of at least the analysis.
Okay, thank you. Librarian Moore?
Yes. So, I realized, somewhere along the line, if I had thought of it, I would have said someone should maybe call them and talk to them and just let them know this is coming. So I'm just as much to blame as anyone else, because I didn't think of it until just as we were getting close to this meeting. That said, it was an awkward situation in that, as Liz pointed out, you have to present your recommendation to the board and then have a discussion. And there's no guarantee that obviously the board would vote in favor of the recommendation. And that had to take place, so I can understand why that could get juggled. What I want to say is that what the Simonitises are owed is a respectful review of their proposal, a respectful consideration and discussion. And then I think a sort of maybe to keep the channels open to say, this is what we think would be beneficial. These are the recommendations that we have that we think would be beneficial to the library as far as public art. And then they have a choice to think about, because they presented it as basically, this is the specific thing that we want to do. And if that's the specific thing that they want to do, then there's really nothing else could be done. But I think the most respectful thing is to just say, if you're willing to reconsider or to consider some other options, that the board, the library is open to trying to work on something that could be mutually agreeable. But just, it was going to be tough anyway, because yeah, they had a very specific idea of what they wanted, and they made it very clear that these are the conditions.
Thank you, James. Trustee Lynn Harris.
Actually, Trustee Hill can go first, and I'll just follow him.
Great, thank you.
Well, first of all, I thought the analysis that you folks did was great. My concern is, I think that if I had made an offer and it was being studied and a decision had not been voted on, I think I would want to have the chance to react to the recommendation before the vote. We seem to be talking about the vote has already happened. What are we, how are we going to work with it? And the other dimension that I'm a little bit concerned about, I think if somebody wants to give a gift and it's not accepted, if I'm in their shoes, at least for a while, I don't think I want somebody else saying, hey, why don't you do something else? Here's some other possibilities. That, I think that could be legitimately upsetting.
Okay. Yeah. Trustee Chen.
Oh, Trustee Lynn Harris is first, so I'll wait to go after him.
Okay. A few things. I actually agree with Trustee Hill with regard to the suggestion, the posed or possible suggestion of other alternatives. I'm happy to, if it's appropriate, I don't know, it's probably more appropriate for Chair DeWinter to speak with the Simonitis at a certain point to explain how this little committee arrived at its decision. I have no problem with that. I mean, I think it's kind of almost like a one criteria issue in many cases that kind of stopped us a little bit. I do have a question though for Trustee Nash. See, Lisa, you mentioned that when you spoke with Vince, he was upset with, I think you said how it happened. And I'm just wondering what that referred to.
I wouldn't say upset, I would say disappointed that he found out about it, looking at the sort of the public, I'm assuming what he meant because nobody else spoke to him, looking on the public website and seeing I assume he assumed it was sort of a final recommendation. So
Okay, see that to me goes to what's been said earlier. It's to me, I've not been involved in this very long. It seems like it's just a committee that's making a recommendation, and it's certainly not been voted on. So there's been no decision made. So I don't know that it's, I mean, if I were in their shoes, I might want to know, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a fait accompli yet. So thank you.
Trustee Chen.
You, Chair DeWinter. Let me put my hand down. I mean, like my fellow trustees, let me quickly say, because it's been said many times, but it was a very thorough and transparent analysis. It definitely sets the right bar for public analysis and public meetings. I think we're also all coalescing that there's the logical portion and there's the emotional portion. And I don't think I'm going out too much on a limb when I say I feel like we probably could have done things differently on the emotional side. My observation is we are, given the difference of the opinion among us, we're making some assumptions about how they may have want, like, oh, one assumption is it's just preliminary, they may not want to know about it. They would say, like, let's give them options, right? Like, trustee, like, if we had to do this differently, I might have suggested, like, tell them this is coming, and they can make the choice, give them the agency to have the choice of whether they want to attend tonight or not. Trustee Hill may have a valid point, right? They may not want to engage further, but let's give them that choice. Let's not assume, saying like, hey, we're not sure, if it was kind of like a one and done deal, we respect that. If you want to iterate, we would be open to that. And again, kind of like flush it out. And it's kind of hard to do just like online, and it may require a bit of more of a personal touch. So I think that's the observation, is let's bring back that personal touch that we can't do in a city of ours, of San Mateo size. This is not Singapore or London. And yeah, and to that end, I think Director Esselstein had a great suggestion, like maybe programs could be if they're interested in exploring, maybe a sponsored series of programs, where they're the name sponsor could be an approach. And then the other reaction I had is to Trustee Diaz-Nash's question about, does it always have to be, like the United Nations of sculptures? I would encourage us to think more digitally. Like, we could imagine there's an outdoor piece that is on the screen, or even we take over one of the screens indoors. And if they're interested, right, they could sponsor, the creation of a film or something like that, right, where a lot could be done for the very generous amount they proposed. It would allow us the freedom to be more inclusive of not only age, which is an original proposal, but also the other dimensions of diversity as mentioned in the city charter. So I just, look, I love me a good sculpture like anybody else, especially living close to Stanford in the Rodin Garden. But I would say there are digital options that we can explore if they are interested. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I just want to say, and maybe publicly apologize, I guess, for any feelings that we may have heard, or we certainly didn't mean to disappoint in our procedural way we handled this. And I think, if I can speak for Trustee Lynn Harris, that we really did feel like this was sort of the preliminary analysis, and there was still going to be discussion. And so, yeah, but we could have thought more about things from their perspective, and maybe communicated prior to publishing, the analysis in the packet online. So I do apologize for that. Trustee Lynn Harris.
Actually, I think that Librarian Moore had his hand up prior to mine.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Lynn Harris. I will make this very quickly.
But he's eating, so I'll go first.
I will make this very quick, and that is that, this is the sort of thing that in my several years in this role, this is the first time it's ever come up. And I just want to say that I think it's understandable that you were not sure exactly how to present it with regard to sensitivity, and should you present it to them, for them, allow them to hear it at the meeting. Obviously, this is just something we will learn from. There's a couple of other art donations that are waiting to be evaluated, and we will get some practice. But I don't think anyone thinks at all that you all were intentionally insensitive. And for me personally, I think it's understandable that you didn't know exactly how to present it, because I don't recall it ever coming up before during my time at San Mateo Public Library.
Thank you. Trustee Diaz-Nash.
Trustee Lynn Harris, was there anything you wanted to say?
But very simply, I was actually going to say what Librarian Moore said. He answered my question. I was going to ask about precedent and was there something that should have been adhered to or not? I was not aware. It had never come before. I kind of assumed that something similar to this had been, so that we were proceeding in the right manner. But that said, we now know going forth.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone, well, I shouldn't speak for anybody else. I certainly think that the committee undertook it with the highest of intentions and was very thorough and very thoughtful. And I think the one thing that maybe tips it a little bit is the fact that, as we saw from the presentation that they made last time, they've been thinking about this for a long time. And they travel around the world and take pictures in front of libraries. And they went and looked at lots of other sculptures. And so to Trustee Chen's perspective, the emotional side of it and they've been engaged in it for a long time. And I think they're smart and people, and they love the library and will continue to love the libraries. So I think it's just as Trustee Chen said, the humanity is a factor. So, but thank you both for doing what you did.
So I wonder at this point if, yeah.
One quick thing.
Yeah.
I thank you. Sorry about that. I just want to say, again, not speaking for you, but to the others, I was frustrated that we kind of ran into the fact that it would not satisfy some of those criteria, or primarily one criteria, because I did really like the sculpture. I certainly appreciated what they did. I liked the fact there were ages, but on the one issue, it just did not satisfy what seems to be needed, and that was reinforced by some of the comments. So it was a source of frustration that when Liz and I met, said I don't know how it can work. And frankly, to go back to something that was said quite a long time ago during this meeting, trying to think about other ways to get it done. I was not able to come up with one. So it was just a little bit of frustration for me.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add that I think it seemed like they weren't familiar with our policy from the beginning, and also the criteria within our policy on originality. So they came up with their idea without being aware of the specifics of our policy. And at the point where they were presented, oh, this is the proposal form where it talks about the criteria. They were so far in on the idea that I just think it was unfortunate the way that all panned out, which I also think we all learned about for the next time. Lynn?
Would the board be able to consider postponing final discussion and a vote until the Simonidises were invited to review and make any comments at a future meeting?
I think that's a great idea. And I've been thinking about that as well, that there's no rush to vote here. So I think that is not a bad way to go. So would anyone have an issue if we postpone the vote? No. So
basically, do we need a motion that says, let's put this on the agenda for the next meeting and invite them to come and speak if they would like?
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, my only question is, we are devoting quite a bit of time either in a meeting or outside of the meeting. And I'm wondering if it makes sense to A, push back the vote, but B, do we want to figure out an offsite meeting, maybe James, Lynn, Rod and I, or something like that, to talk offline as opposed to just bringing them in for a meeting. That's what I would propose. So maybe a motion to,
I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea. And so I'll add that to my motion, or revise the motion to include your good suggestion.
great. So Dina, does that make sense to you? So we're gonna hold off on the vote and we'll plan an offsite meeting with them to discuss the
Does
analysis.
Jen have a comment prior to that? Did you want to make a comment, trustee Chen?
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Diaz-Nash. Yeah, no, I think I'm very supportive of this idea, right? If the meetings are primarily aimed at decisions, some of this, excuse me. Ideation, iteration could happen offline when there can be a back and forth, and we already have a subcommittee selected. And the next meeting could be, it could be either procedural if they decide they really don't want to iterate, but they still need a final decision, or it could be a decision on a different path.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think we could go forward though with Trustee Hill's motion. Oh, Trustee Diaz now.
Just two additions. Yes, I totally support Trustee Hill's motion, but somewhere in the minutes to the issue of does age need to be added to diversity at the city level? I don't know how that goes up the pipeline. Or should the library consider having diversity as part of our policy? Yay or nay? And then number two, for future, to try and learn from this, is there a way if someone approaches us in future that we can say, okay, before we, and I know that they were directed to talk to Heather in the city and all these other things, but has some things for anybody to read that say here from a library perspective, here's what we consider, so that they would see that before they came to a meeting and we got even further. Is there any way we can have the discussion happen before everything is so baked?
Oh, thank you. I see your hand raised, Trustee Chen, but I just want to make the distinction that this was truly a unique situation because the artwork, one, hadn't been purchased yet, and two, is going to be placed outside the library. I think normally our policy works for art that's already in existence and is inside the library. That's just my opinion, but I think the idea of going to the city and increasing their definition of diversity to include age does make some sense. But I do think this was truly unique because of those two things I mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's nothing to say someone else won't try and do that in the future.
True.
Right. So then how do we, I'm just trying to think of how do we try and
I think if this were to happen tomorrow and somebody wanted to create something and put it outside, we now would say, hey, we have an internal library policy and there's also a city policy. Here they are for you to look at. And then you can make a proposal, but at least they would have all the information. Yeah, but those are good points. Trustee Chen.
Thank you, Chair Winter. Two comments. One, I definitely agree with Trustee Diaz-Nash's idea of let's try to promote adding age as part of the diversity criteria. At the same time, we should apply the policies as they are stated at the time, right? So I think, for just for fairness and transparency, right? Unfortunately, it's not in there. So I think and so there can be no extra points given for age diversity. And I think you and Chair Winter and Trustee Lynn-Harris were very fair about that, right? But that doesn't mean we can't advocate for a different policy in the future, but Otherwise, if we start adding things ad hoc and that aren't written down, then other people say like, well, that wasn't fair. Like, how come I don't see it anywhere in the policy? How come that got in or didn't get in?
Right. Thank you. Any other thoughts? So maybe go back to Trustee Hill's motion.
Dina, procedural question. Is this, do we need a motion? Like, is this where, I mean, sort of like an action item versus a decision.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because you're gonna have a meeting and then determine when it would go on an agenda.
Right, yeah, that's on our current agenda is just a report, right? We're reporting on the analysis. So that's a very good procedural question. But I think we're all in agreement anyway, that we'll push back the vote and we'll do an offsite meeting.
100%.
Great. And Trustee Lynn Harris, maybe we can discuss, and then obviously Lynn and librarian Moore, we can figure that out as well. Timing and how we want to do it.
Who, I'm sorry, I thought I heard two different things. And the participants in the offsite meeting will be the 4 of us or the 6 of us, including the Semitises?
Right, that's, I think, to be determined how we're going to do it.
Ah.
And also, it'll probably be via Zoom as well, so. Yeah.
That's all right. I have, go
We
ahead.
can, yeah, we can chat. I guess the point is that we can chat offline and figure out what makes sense and take it from there.
And the goal, the eventual goal is to just make certain they're apprised and have an opportunity to speak with us as the subcommittee before there's more extensive discussion and the final vote is taken.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not
Well,
sure what the intent. Yeah, I mean, I think the intent is to of course communicate with them and see what our next steps are, but I'm not sure the logistics. So that's, yeah, Lynn?
I think, and this is just coming from a sort of donor stewardship point of view, what you really want to do is to have an opportunity to communicate with them the process, where you felt perhaps, communicate that the board actually felt you had left a step out, and to invite them, they may say no, to provide feedback in person at a Zoom, or at least with the committee, give feedback to you that you can carry back. I think what you want to have is an open, honest line of communication and express to them, any, I'm trying to find a word that's soft here, but to recognize that perhaps there was a misstep, about inviting them to come and understand this at this first meeting, and there was a reluctance by the board to take any action without having made the overture. And I think that will be helpful in making sure that nobody wanted to do anything until they'd had an opportunity to be invited to give input. And I think if you don't stop now, you can't make that overture.
Well, then I think also that we should make sure that for anything that is kind of in this general arena of gifts, that perhaps there is some kind of procedure that's been set forth, but that if not, there's something that's, for lack of a better term, codified, so that we know exactly what steps to take going forth so that, someone in the future can't point to this, or we don't give something to someone and violate someone else's opportunity. That might be just as important as anything. It's giving us an opportunity.
Agreed. Okay. Any other thoughts? So I think we'll just communicate offline and go from there. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, this wasn't an easy topic, I guess, but it's a kind of a learning experience for all of us as well. So, but the bottom line is it's very, very generous also for the Simonitis to make this offer in the first place, even though it did create work, but it provided really good conversations, I think, for us. So on that note, I'm going to go to the next topic, which is new business and presentation by Librarian Moore on the 21-22 departmental work plan.
All right, thank you. And thank you all, not to belabor the point, but thank you for your work on that. That was a challenging thing, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen. I have shared the 21-22 work plan, which the major themes carry over from the 2021 work plan, and that was deliberate. Let me give you the nature of a work plan, a departmental work plan at San Mateo. First of all, it's a living document. It can be updated or adjusted throughout the year as if we learn that there are things that would be better on there or things that should be removed. It is a guide.
James, I just wanted, you mentioned you were going to share your screen.
Yes. So yeah, I'm just setting that up. So I'm going to share my screen because I actually made a little PowerPoint this weekend, and I originally was not going to add a PowerPoint, and this could be added into the board minutes later. I decided to add the PowerPoint because I felt in order to give the proper context to this year's work plan, I wanted to provide some achievements from last year's work plan. So now I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so like I said, the major, if you dug all the way through our work plan, you will see there's divisional goals, divisional benchmarks, but the major themes, the departmental themes, are the things that the divisions have some creativity and flexibility to work on, but these should be the guiding major themes for this year. And as from last year, they are internal, external user experience, continuing to build a sustainable marketing outreach program, and diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And I'm putting this PowerPoint up not because I want you all to see this, but I'm not going to read through each and every one. And I'm putting this up so you can look at it. And I'm going to highlight maybe a couple of things from each slide, and then I'll talk about the new work plan. So I would say, as far as user experience goes, obviously we introduced curbside, and that was a big deal. And we paused fine collection and accumulation during the pandemic. I think one of the big changes, most impactful, and that's what I'll try to focus on, is number 3, where we added A to Z listing of our databases to the website to improve accessibility. And that also goes under outreach and under marketing. Many public libraries spend thousands of dollars a year on very powerful, useful databases, like Value Line, any number of things where you can look for jobs, etc. It's been my experience that the databases are chronically underused. And one of the goals that I set for the staff this year was to do an audit of the databases. And one of the results of that was that we removed Learning Express database. it is a great database. And the point of the audit was to see, are we marketing the databases correctly? And they're still not being used, or are they not being used very well because they're not marketed well? So I asked the library staff to look at Learning Express the previous year. And I gave them one more year to market it, to let people know about it, to use that as a judge as to whether or not we should keep paying for it. Because they say it's a great database, but people are not using it. You know, we're talking about 100 people or 50 people used it in a year. So we decided, after giving it a year to attempt marketing it, that we needed to remove it because people are not getting good use from it. We added an A to Z listing on our website so that anyone that goes to our website can look. We list the databases that we have by theme. Is it education? Is it business? Is it entrepreneurial? And then we added an A to Z listing. I think this seems like a small thing, but I think it is a substantial thing because I think many people will come to the library. The librarians will show them a wonderful database. These people get home and they cannot find the database again because it's so challenging to navigate our website to get to those databases. So by adding a listing, adding a topical categorization on our website under the e-library collection, that person could go home, find the database that the librarian showed them, and access it. I believe that that was a big improvement. Other things I'm very proud of is the children's team did a diversity audit of our collection. And that is simply looking at it and saying, is subjective, but are we meeting the needs of the community? Is our collection representative of the people that make up our community? Is it too heavy on one group or another? And they use that for collection building this year and moving forward. Our adult services also did a periodicals audit, and they're still continuing to do it. We took advantage of the pandemic to do this. We have some wonderful magazines. Many of them are well used. I also look at some of the periodicals that we have, and I know that they haven't been looked at in years. And so I said, should we have some other things? You know, we need to look at the circulation numbers. We need to look at the usage numbers. And then we need to ask, was that a great periodical to subscribe to 6 years ago, but not now? And so they have not eliminated any titles, but I suspect that over the next year, we will carry this over and some titles could be replaced or updated based upon patterns of patron behaviors. I'm not going to dwell on this one too much, but I'll just say that Ruxana started the branch enhancements in earnest. The branch enhancements, putting aside supply chain issues, the amount of time it takes to get materials will be completed this year if none of those things prevent it. So it began in earnest. The researching, she researched carpets, materials, a new desk. She surveyed the staff and worked with Public Works and is still working on getting some of those things actually ordered. But I do know that new carpet has been ordered for Hillsdale. One last thing I would like to add on external and internal user experience is that the adult services, a couple adult services librarians took advantage of the pandemic to weed the Friends of the Library store, to rearrange the collection using their expertise, and to rearrange the furniture to make it more accessible, to get rid of dead inventory, and to make it hopefully in more easy to navigate area. Next, I'll go to build sustainable marketing and outreach program. So I mentioned the putting the databases in A to Z listing on our website. I consider that marketing. Last year, we also revamped our annual report, which had grown stale, and made it into more of a storytelling format, which still included the crucial statistics, and we called it an impact report. Something that we did that, as far as I know, was not done before is that we, our adult services librarians marketed library services directly to local homeless service providers, specifically Chromebook Cafe, and partnered with the HOAs in different neighborhoods to conduct story walks. I think Lisa was aware of that. Another thing was the Library Foundation committed this year to making the Fund a Need focus, raising money to help us with staffing on Mateo. One of the challenges that we've had is that we have not had enough people to meet the level of demand of people wanting us to be more out in the community. If we send Mateo to, for example, a farmer's market for 3 hours on a Saturday morning, it's 10 hours of staff time. You have to have 2 people. You have to have time built in to go pick up the van because it does not fit in our garage. And you have to have time built in to drop it off, as well as being there. We knew that if we take people off the desk, we have to backfill them with on-call staff. We also know that there were on-call staff who wanted to help with Mateo, but there were budgetary challenges. We still have long-term budgetary challenges, especially in this regard. But what the foundation did do was give us a lifeline, and we were expecting that this year things would be more open and that we would be out more. That's still kind of up in the air, but we do have the money this year to expand outreach using Mateo and to staff it. And perhaps the biggest, most meaningful impact that we have was we recruited for the branch services librarian, who is to be the point person on expanding outreach, particularly in the communities where those branches are. Now we've hired that person in this fiscal year, and she'll be coming to a meeting. She's a long-term librarian at Marina. Her name is Aisha Washington. She's well-respected, loved by all her colleagues, and deeply embedded in those communities. And she knows going into this position, and she's already doing, that she is essentially our leader as far as finding and expanding and organizing new outreach opportunities. And she is, as you can see from some of the things that I've sent you all, she is already doing it. And we expect more. We expect her to be out in those communities. We expect her to collaborate with some of our bilingual staff. We know that there are Spanish language markets. We know there are Chinese language markets in parts of the city that we do not hit. And now we have someone at the branches who will oversee that. One challenge will be is that her old position is vacant. And I will talk about this more. Recruiting right now is a challenge. Staffing is a challenge. So her old position is vacant and she will need to fill it. But I am so thrilled that she has accepted the job, and I think she's really going to improve our outreach and marketing. Lastly, this is a sampling of the steps that we took as far as diversity and equity and inclusion. And as you'll see on our new work plan, we specifically mentioned working with age-friendly cities. Honestly, a lot of the things that we're doing here, we've always been very good. The library has always basically, in my view, been the leader when it comes to programming in this regard. We had some misses. We tried to have a big forum and discussion on housing in San Mateo, and it just proved too difficult to arrange. That said, the city has indicated that they're interested in taking another try and providing us with some support to do a program on redlining in January. They asked me what we did. I told them what we would need to try it again, and we will see. But what I want to say is, you can see we have a good range of programs that acknowledge we were already doing monthly curated displays on different under acknowledged cultures. I think we have some challenges going into this year, which I will speak about when we talk about the new work plan. But before I move to that, I want to give anyone, excuse me, a chance to ask any questions or comment, if you have any, before we move on, about what this sampling of what we did last year in these different areas, anything like that. And if you have none, I will move to, oh, Lisa. You're muted.
I'm trying.
Okay.
I just wanted to add a resounding voice of support for Aisha. I met her a couple of weeks ago for the first time.
Mhm,
I've been working with her, but we did a social in Baywood.
mhm,
He was sort of thrown into the lion's den to figure out how to get the van over, how to get through. And then the morning of the event, after she'd done all this work, she
mhm,
contacted me early in the morning and say the person who took it out the day before didn't return the keys.
mhm,
Couldn't bring Mateo, but that didn't stop her. She and Jillian came. They brought all sorts of things. It was so much more popular this year.
mhm.
I saw her just on Friday night at Central Park at the movies.
Mhm.
Same thing. So, I just really, really am so excited that there's someone in that position. And that person is Aisha. She's fantastic. So
Thank you very much. Aisha has been with the library for a while, over a decade,
mhm.
and she's one of the most respected individuals. And I know that there are a lot of people at the branches who really wanted her. She's deeply embedded in Marina, and there are some people that move into a position and you just know that they are going to thrive, that you can count on them, that they have the right mindset, and they give you the best chance possible.
Yep.
I'm thrilled that she has accepted the position to be the branch supervisor.
Right.
Dr. Chin, sorry, Lisa.
No, thank
were
you.
Okay.
More. I'm gonna lower my hat. Yeah, I certainly wholeheartedly echo Trustee Nash's congratulations for librarian in Washington.
Mhm,
I mean, I think I first met her at Marina when I was preparing for my application to be on this board. And since then, I've attended many of her programs and have been singly impressed with each and every one. So, that is half the comment.
mhm,
Well, that's one comment. The other comment is, I think I would say, thank you for putting together this presentation. I found it, I would say, much more patron perspective friendly than the one that's in the formal packet. So I really appreciate your efforts to add a little color.
mhm,
And I think my headline message is, y'all doing a lot of good work. Don't hide it underneath a bushel. Like when you talk about, what Aisha's doing, what Library of Washington's doing, right? About like reaching out to all these markets, that's such powerful impact and conveys so much more than completed branch supervisor recruitment, which is technically correct, but I think really undersells what the importance of this accomplishment is. So I think, by contrast, when we talked about the A to Z, like that was like, seems like really helpful. Like, okay, like the patrons can see like, this is how it makes my life better. So just encourage you and the staff in the work plan updates to always take the patron's perspective and frame it in terms of here's what it means for them. It's not anything you all don't know already. You know, I just think, don't be shy about the good work you're doing and how you're making the patients' lives better every day, and just make it easy for them to see that in these reports.
Thank you. That is very, very, very good constructive feedback. Thank you. So if
Oh,
Lisa,
trustee- Yeah.
I think is your hand still raised, or did you raise it again?
It's a new one. It's a new one.
Okay, sure, please.
On Trustee Chen, absolutely telling the story of what's going on. But also I know this work plan quarterly report is what you were given as a format. But I think also finding ways of talking about the changes over time. So, you know me, I'm always about what's the impact? How do we measure qualitatively, quantitatively? But trending over time, I think, is so important too. And that doesn't get captured in actually either what you were given by the city manager or presentation which you put together, which was talking about what we want to do. But just
Right.
really continue to tell that trend over time.
Thank you, Lisa. And I will see if we can get to the city manager's office to think about maybe adjusting the format.
I'm sure Trustee Chen, I would be very happy to go sit in his office until he does. Yeah.
I'm sure he would like that too. So I'm going to talk a bit about this year's work plan. And in doing so, I'm also going to talk about the areas in which we still have real growth. So I think you all know that we've surveyed patrons and staff on potential service improvements, particularly around the hours. We got 350 responses from the patrons, which is very good. And I am still waiting for Marcia to work with Samantha Weigel in the city manager's office, because they have to do some step to organize the responses for me before I can read through them. We also did a survey, a 10-day survey of the staff regarding hours. And I am waiting to get those as well. But we are working on that. I have my thoughts going into it, but I have promised to myself that I will not make any final conclusions until I read the feedback from the patrons, give you all a chance to weigh in and to see if we can improve by making some adjustments around our hours. So as far as user experience, the biggest areas that I think we can improve obviously is, obviously we need to finish the branch renovations. Some point we need new branches. Kudos to President DeWinter for getting attention on Marina. And one of the things that I am looking into, and I attended today, was a seminar for emergency funding for infrastructure and safety improvements at the branch. I'm going to complete the application. I've made Drew aware of it, and he's interested. It is a grant that is called the Building Forward Library Infrastructure Program. And it is from the California State Library. And if you want any more information on it, I'll be glad to share it with you later. But it is a matching grant. So we would have to put forth the funds and then being reimbursed, or they would match the funds. I am hopeful about it because our city council representative, Diane Papin, has really brought this to the city manager's attention after it was brought to her attention by Liz. I think that the situation there is disconcerting. The most beautiful feature of that branch cannot be accessed because the door is often shut. And I just have a goal that we get significant renovations or improvements to Marina in Hillsdale, or we get new branches that better serve those communities. So that is an area in which we're not there yet. You know, we still are, let me stop the share. We still are trying to find creative ways in which we can fund those goals. And you don't have to know the whole thing beforehand. We know that there's potential housing developments coming near Marina. We know that there was a discussion that was paused about a potential collaboration between Parks and Rec and the library to do a joint facility somewhere. But that is something that I think that we still have substantial work to do, and that I want us to be better on. Another thing I would put for internal user experience is professional growth opportunities. Now, and this falls under diversity and equity as well. One of the things I'm very, very proud of is that at this point on our management team, everyone except for one person is someone who has developed through the library system over the years. They were not promoted, they were hired to a new position. But I think the mark of a good organization is that you develop talent in-house and it's mutually beneficial, and they feel good about stepping into positions of greater responsibility. And that is what we've seen over the last several years. We have a diverse management team of the most competent group of people that I've ever worked with. And all of them, with the exception of one, is someone who moved up through the ranks at San Mateo Public Library, including Aisha, who started not as a librarian, but as a paraprofessional library aide. And she worked her way up, got her master's degree, and now she is a very respected and liked manager. I still think that we have work to do. And I think this goes under diversity and equity. And that is that we don't have, despite the fact that our management team is very diverse, the most diverse management team I've seen at any library, when you get to the middle, the professional ranks, the professional librarians, we don't have, we have wonderful people. We don't have many bilingual Spanish speakers as just professional librarians. We don't have any. We have 2 supervisors, and then we have some paraprofessionals. We don't have bilingual Asian American, Chinese, and English speakers amongst the librarians. We have plenty of paraprofessionals who are Asian American, but we don't have a lot of diversity from a racial standpoint as far as our librarians go. And I think that is a carryover from many years of just the way it has been. And when I go to seminars and et cetera now, I'm seeing many more colorful faces. I don't think this is a result of people being denied opportunity. I think that we have to do a better job of developing people and preparing them for these opportunities when they're younger. I think we also have to do a better job of marketing how good this work is and how rewarding it is. We talked about this as a city, and one of the things that came up was, in my point of view, was I think our best shot for helping particularly young people of color in this community who are interested in perhaps going into librarianship, particularly young Black and Brown people, is some sort of internship program. And that's where I think we are failing. I don't think we have the resources right now when you take on interns, you are basically coaching them and teaching them. So I don't think we have the staffing resources or the monetary resources, but that is a goal of mine. If we can find a way, I want us to find a way to eventually create internship opportunities for young people, especially, first of all, for all young people, but especially giving some thought to those young people who are Black and brown, who are woefully underrepresented in our field and in the professional ranks in general, to see if they can get some summer opportunities to get introduced to this kind of work. And a lot of young people who do not come from professional households need someone. This is what an internship is. You don't expect them to come in knowing what to do. You're committing to teaching them and guiding them on professional etiquette, on responsibility, on accountability, etc. So that is an area in which I think the city of San Mateo, librarianship, and particularly our library, could be better, should be better, and must be better, and must aim to improve on. There is hope, because we are going to have a couple of interns next summer to help with the summer reading program. And we're just trying to figure out how that is going to work. But typically this was something the San Mateo County Library did. They handle all the processing of the summer reading program prizes, and they hired interns. Well, they're giving the individual libraries an opportunity to do that for ourselves, but it's something that we have to build from the ground up. But I'm thrilled, because even if we can bring on a couple of interns, we have a chance to give some young people who may not be getting the opportunity to learn about professional opportunities like this at the library. Where we could improve in building sustainable outreach program this year.
Oh, can I pause you for a second?
Yes.
I just see that Trustee Diaz-Nash has her.
Oh yes, let's stop there before I move on.
Thank you so much, Winter and Librarian Moore. I just couldn't agree with you more. And I think there is an opportunity, and maybe you already are doing this, to go apply for grants from foundations for this work. Not trying to make it work within your existing budget, because it won't, because you're already short-staffed. But
Right.
this is absolutely such a perfect thing to go to a couple foundations to work on, locally as well as nationally. So maybe you're already involved in it. If not, I've got a couple of ideas, but there are probably a lot of others as well.
I would love to hear those ideas, because one of the challenges is applying for grants, especially federal grants, is that they can be quite labor intensive.
No, I'm talking private foundations, forget
Okay.
small ones.
Okay, I would love to talk about that more. And the same goes for professional growth opportunities within our staff. We have some people on our staffs now. I don't push people, but I know that we have a rich pool of talent. And one of my proudest accomplishments is when you see people who have ability and you encourage them and you give them opportunities to grow. Traditionally, libraries have been siloed by divisions. And sometimes it's not encouraged for people to stretch. I am stretching. I'm encouraging people to stretch. I am telling people one of the things that we want to do is partner paraprofessional staff with professional staff to give them opportunities to shadow people who are doing jobs that they might want to develop and grow into. So that's the last thing I wanted to share on the user experience. And if there's a question, please speak up. And if not, I'll go to sustainable outreach.
Lynn has a question.
Okay.
I wanted to first of all comment the last time that yay, Aisha's awesome. and how pleased I am to see the branch work beginning. That's a long time interest of the foundation and seeing those improvements happen. Briefly, I wanted to mention that I was curious, what size grant are you applying for with the Cal State Library?
We're not even at that point, because what I had to do was first to see if we met the minimum qualifications.
Okay.
And now that I know that we do, I need to, we got till October 27th. I need to, and that's just the first, that's like the preliminary, and I can share more information, but the preliminary deadline is October 27th. So between now and then, I need to go back to the city manager's office, as well as talk with Public Works to see the scope of what the city is willing to match. And yes.
My comment to you is that the foundation began as a capital campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in the process of thinking what our next move is strategically. And I believe at the last meeting, several board members commented that if you thought Marina could be a viable project, it was not clear what the city's intention was with the property or the branch, that we would really like to be kept apprised of that, because I think there is a receptive donor base to doing something big like that. And we may have the capacity to help you get to the qualification that you need. I mean, that's basically how it worked in the last round too.
Okay.
So I say this, I don't want to derail. I'm just reminding you to please keep us in the loop, and along those lines, to respond to Lisa's comment about foundations, that you can apply to for if you, I think you're specifically saying you'd like interns, some kind of a funded thing. I agree that there are probably some really good places to go out and ask for support for a pilot program that starts that pipeline going. But also, this may resonate quite strongly with the community around a fund a need. And, in typical, we don't want to raise one-time money for things that have ongoing costs. They call them things that eat. But if we want to define this as something like a pilot program to help establish a pipeline for the future, with ultimately the city having responsibility for the total operations package of the library, I think the foundation might be interested in working with you to try and support that mission. So I just want you to make sure that you consider us as potential partners for a lot of these new, really powerful, really interesting ideas, James. Don't assume that anything that you may have heard about the way we give grants in the past is determinative of how we might respond to an entirely new program and initiative that you guys want to advance. So please come talk to us.
I will follow up with you this week. And Lynn, the big challenge is sustaining the program. We'll talk about it later, but that is the challenge. We have budget discussions for the 2-year budget in January. And I think the better prepared we are to say, this is what we like to do, this is what we need to do, the better chance we have. But there really is no way to do some of these things, especially beyond the pilot, without some expansion of our budget. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be like, you know, a major, but we will have to increase it some to get a commitment. And I don't want you all to start a pilot and then, because we're already working through some of these issues, to start a pilot and then find ourselves really trying to, we got some work to do to figure out how to sustain some of the programs that we have. But we could talk about that in more detail, and I look forward to it.
Agree.
Outreach and building a sustainable outreach program. Like I said, I think we've got someone in place. The next thing that needs to occur is she needs to hire her replacement at the branches. You know, Adriana has started a year-long calendar for outreach. The first year she came, and that kind of faded away because she just didn't have enough time to do it. But when you look at the steps that it takes to develop a sustainable outreach program, we want to find places where we have regularly occurring events. If it is, that means Saturday markets, farmers markets. We want to get to the place where we have a calendar that says every month we go to this market, then we go to this market on this day, and we go to that market on this day, etc. We have a lot of work to work through, a lot of work to do as far as developing scheduling that will facilitate it. That's going to be part of Aisha's job. We have identified some areas where we can reach underrepresented communities east of the freeway, and we know they're there. It was just a matter of getting the people freed up to get them there. We have at least an opportunity to staff better, although that is complicated by the fact that we are having trouble hiring part-time people right now. But we do know that long-term, we have some seed money to better staff Mateo. So it comes down to scheduling the people, having the people being able to pay for the staff to free them up to go, and then developing the relationships in a schedule of programming so that people know where we're going to be, in addition to the pop-up events that we have, that we will continue doing. And of course, we have home delivery service, which I think is very sustainable without a large investment, and a lot of credit. A lot of what we learned is what Donna Devote learned years ago. We still have more work to do as far as seeing whether or not there could be lasting relationships with some of the senior homes. But I'll let you all know I used home delivery service while I was injured. And so far, we do not have a large group of people wanting that service. It's about 10 people. And that's what Donna Devote said. We also got ideas on how we could do that service by enlisting neighbors or family members or even teenagers to pick up items for some of their homebound or elderly neighbors. That's something that was done before. So as far as I'm concerned, that is going to be a sustainable program that it looks like that we can continue and maybe expand carefully, because right now it's very manageable. But I have looked around at different Peninsula libraries, and they all say that home delivery service for people who are regular users of the service is typically around 10 to 15 people, is not a large group of people. And that is totally fine, because what it means is that we can meet those people's needs with the staffing that we have. And if we get more people, then we can think about ways and figure out ways we could expand the service and commit more staff to it. If you have any questions on that, please chime in. Otherwise, I will touch on our plans for equity, diversity, inclusion, and social justice engagement. Okay, so I know that a lot of libraries around the country, in response to some of the issues that really have been brought to the forefront over the last couple of years, have gone all in on mandating staff trainings, specifically on race and gender. First of all, I would like to say my perspective and what I am giving as a priority to our library is that diversity has to be looked at from a variety of different ways. And that includes age, as we talked about earlier. And as you can see, we are committed to supporting the age-friendly initiative. Some of the things we have coming up this year are we're going to take another swing if the city community development, which is the area which asks us to talk about housing, if they can provide us with some support from their end, we want to take another swing at this question of redlining and housing discrimination. Right now, our African American Cultural Committee has basically been the only cultural committee doing programming during the pandemic. And they have essentially secured an agreement from New Yorker writer and widely seen commentator Jelani Cobb. He's had documentaries on Frontline, CNN. He's a pretty big deal. They have gotten him to agree to come, and they're working with me to see how they can raise money to cover his fee, which he has greatly reduced for them. They honestly shouldn't be able to afford him, but he's doing it because they know how to get that done. So that is a big program that is coming up, and they've asked me to reach out to San Mateo, to College of San Mateo, to see if they could co-host it because they want to make it into a fundraiser. They are doing fundraising on their own to do more programming. And that is a very big draw. And they don't think that our Oak Room could house the crowd, especially with social distancing. So we have those things coming. And I just want to say, I am not mandating that our staff take specific classes with the exception of one. We are bringing in Ryan Dowd, who's a nationally recognized, and this is a grant that we actually got, that I actually wrote. Ryan Dowd, who is a nationally recognized expert on homeless and mental health issues as relating to homeless. He's established a homeless shelter and a homeless services center in the Chicago area, and he's been doing this for many years. And a condition of the grant was that we invite other libraries, other staff from PLS libraries to join our staff. So that is something that our staff has been asking for, more training on dealing with our patrons who are experiencing issues with homeless. Although we do not have huge issues with that, we have a very good relationship, I think, in general, with most of our patrons who are experiencing homeless, and they're some of our best patrons. But staff has asked for more support on knowing how to handle some of those issues. And we have Ryan Dowd scheduled to come in and speak to the staff in January. He's very hard to get, and his calendar stretches far out. But beyond that, we have given staff a small stipend to choose some classes or courses that they want to take on this topic. And we supply them with recommendations and options. But I want to stress this. I did not feel a need to have someone come in and speak to us specifically on diversity, equity, et cetera, in our workplace, because I don't think that fits our group. From the moment I came here, the people welcomed me and they expressed an interest only in supporting me to succeed. When issues arose around George Floyd, people asked what could they do? How could they help? How could they learn more? They asked me about my personal experience. Of course, we always need to learn more about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I want to take a more subtle approach with our group. I think our resources are better used on speaking or bringing someone in to talk about homelessness. Also having, as part of our all staff discussions, issues on a matter, discussions on these issues. But if I were to grade our group, I would say we have a very diverse staff. I observe this staff. They're respectful to one another. They're respectful to all patrons. They want to help. I've never seen any indication that I've been here that there are issues with race and gender discrimination at our library. And I honestly believe that this is a group of people that have achieved these things partially by how they are, but also by being open-minded and working with each other. If I feel that those issues exist, I will attack them quickly. But mostly I think we are doing a very good job in our day-to-day operations, in our programming, in our treatment of each other, in our treatment of the community. Where we can get better is cultivating opportunities and preparing young people, particularly Black and brown people in this community, to be prepared and to have an idea and to feel welcome and to have mentorship if they want to pursue librarianship. Even if they don't want to pursue librarianship, if they just want to pursue an opportunity to get a job at the library. We can and must do a better job of reaching out to young people and saying, you are welcome. These are the sort of opportunities that are here. And we're going to put our arms around you and we're going to give you every opportunity possible to get prepared for these opportunities so that when you enter the workforce, you will have a fighting chance to get these opportunities. When it comes to libraries, I still think there's an issue in the professional ranks of who young people see across the desk when they come in and get help. I never ever saw a Black librarian, even Black staff at my beloved Indianapolis Public Library. I believe I was probably the first African-American man ever to work at the Multnomah County Public Library in Portland. I was one of 600 people, and there was no other, and there was maybe 3 Black women, and that was not by accident. And it was tough, although there were a lot of people there who supported me and were great, and especially the leadership. All I can tell you is that I've seen people's demeanor change when they come in, when I was on that desk and they've seen me, and I've seen people say, I want my kids to meet you. I want them to know this is possible. And so we have to do more here to prepare young people to get these opportunities and to help them to come into our library, to feel a part of it, and to get opportunities to work in this field if they want to. But as far as our service, as far as our attitudes about diversity and inclusion, I've never, ever, anywhere in my life seen a group of people work together better, work together more respectfully of each other and community members, and completely embrace each other's uniqueness and differences and be completely committed to doing that with their community. So that is my update on our annual report, and I'm open to any questions.
I just want to say thank you so much for presenting on this. I found this so interesting. I really appreciated how you've taken into account what your staff think they need training in and going above and beyond to find someone so great to speak about that.
Thank you, Liz. I'm very concerned about it because I think we just have a really great opportunity. And I think that people are more open than ever to talking about these things. And I feel like the trainers that you bring in, I'm just going to be frank with you, I've been to some of these trainings, and they were not well done. And they walked away, they left a lot of people walking away feeling pretty browbeaten and discouraged. So I'm going to be very, very careful about anyone that I bring in to speak to our group and to make sure that they're encouraging and they're understanding and it is fruitful for us. And I didn't just rush out and say, oh, we got to get this person or that person, or we got to have all these trainings because this has happened. I wanted to look at what our challenges are. And it's remarkable. We really do. It's a very healthy library from that perspective, in my view.
That's great to hear. Trustee Chen?
Thank you, Chair DeWinter. James, I'm just so inspired by like your leadership, true leadership in this area. This is certainly for me not what I associate the library with, and it's rather amazing that you're seeking ways to create this opportunity. And just as you do, I think echoing Executive Director Esselstein's comments earlier, don't feel like you have to do it alone, right? I could imagine, as an example, basically as an invitation to ask the board to help you. For example, I can imagine if you wanted to showcase to young people of color the hey, this is what a librarian does, right? There's of course things they do in the branches, but if one of your staff who is a person of color is presenting to the board, that could be a time to invite young people to just listen in, especially in this Zoom age. It could be easy, right? And we could reach out to schools like, hey, this month there's this agenda, librarian so-and-so is presenting. Just it's another, at bat or rep to kind of to show this model of people of color, as librarians. So, that could be a terrible suggestion, but I think the general theme is, it's an amazing vision, make it a whole of library effort and include the board. I just encourage you to do that.
Well, thank you, Lester. And I would say, I have my blind spots. And so I would like to think that every single board member knows that any idea you have, you can run it by me. And any idea, I'm completely open to it. I don't know if it'll work, but I'll give you a fair hearing. And I want to know the things that I can't do alone that you all can do with me. And with regard to the library, I think it can become a better, more interesting place if people know about the opportunities. I never thought of it as a career growing up until I got an opportunity to work with a couple of wonderful librarians at my college library. And just to give you an example, we have someone like Noreen Twee who does all of our art displays. She helps pick the artists. She does the cultural displays. That is not a job that someone would think of at a library. Her title is a library assistant, but effectively she's a curator. And her background is in art history. And at the library, she's been able to find a way to help with library work, but also to utilize her creative and curatorial skills, and in a very good job with the city. And I think we have to do a better job of telling people that to be a librarian can be being a performer, it can be being a teacher, it can be someone who has entrepreneurial gifts and doing those sort of programs. And it's not just, there's a lag in image. And I do think there's a perception that it is still mostly a job for professional white Americans. And I'm a little uncomfortable saying that because we obviously have some wonderful librarians at our library, and many of them are white, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. I just want to make sure that we get, we make the pool bigger so that we have more people who can come and join them and be a part of it. If no one has any more questions, then that's my work plan presentation. And I thank you so much for your feedback and your compliments, as well as any critique that you have. And I'm always open to it.
Great, thanks so much.
Mhm.
Oh, Trustee Lynn Harris.
Just two things real quick, James, or excuse me, Librarian Moore. I want to echo what's been said very simply. I think it's an unbelievably wonderful initiative that you're trying to take on in terms of broadening the pool of people that would find a career or a position, or just increase their familiarity with the library to groups that have not been involved before. And even more so, I want to commend you for the way you are trying to tailor what your staff needs in terms of programs to exactly where they are, and not saying, gee, just because everyone is having training in X, that's what we're going to do. I think that obviously demonstrates your commitment to them and to the city, that you're saying what we need here is, and you say the homeless is more of an issue in terms of training. That's somewhat rare these days, and I think it's a tribute to you and the leadership. So I just thank you for that very, very much.
Well, I appreciate it, Rod. I'm very grateful, and you're welcome. Thank you as well.
Great. Okay, let's move on to reports and announcements. Do you have anything more, Librarian Moore, to present?
Nope.
No. Okay.
Not on the work plan. Just my
Okay.
report.
Great. I wanted to start with Executive Director Lynn Esselstein first.
Thank you, Chair DeWinter. I apologize. I keep turning off my camera. I have very unstable internet this evening. So hopefully I don't freeze. If I do, give me a thumbs up. The foundation is busy always, but I will try and keep the report succinct. Coming up in October on the 11th is the Archer Foundation Golf Tournament. That will be outside, and you must be fully vaxxed to attend, but all of you are welcome. And it's always nice for us to have a good show of force. I want to say thank you to the trustees here who have joined with a donation that we are making on behalf of the foundation and library to support the silent auction fundraising for the Archer. If you may recall, in a good year, when the Archer is able to hold their golf tournament, the library receives a grant in the neighborhood of $40,000. For the last 2 years, we've received a $25,000 check. So all of that money would be wonderful to have again this year. So let's support them and wish them every success with the golf tournament. We are wrapping up the Legacy Fund Founding Member Awareness Campaign. That concludes on October 15th. There is a $500 minimum gift, and then names of the participants will be inscribed on a plaque, which will be displayed prominently in the library. But the closing time for that is October 15th. So if you'd still like to participate, there is a button on our website if you look up the Legacy Fund. And then lastly, we are gearing up for Fall Appeal. So we anticipate the next big date on our calendar is October 14th, which is when we will hold our mailroom for the first time in 2 years. We're gonna actually do a little bit of a hybrid personalization for all of the 1,300 letters that we send out to donors and members of the community, asking them to support the library. In the past, we have provided sticky pads, and people can write either a generic note or one to somebody that they know that can be affixed to a letter. But also we invite you this time to come and meet with us at the Oak Room, socially distanced, masked, everything will be safe. But sign a letter or two and see a friendly face because we're all missing everybody. And so we're hoping we can find a way for people to support the appeal at the same time that they get a little bit closer to the mission again, which is all of us supporting a library. And then, yes.
What date is that?
October 14th, and I'll give you some more details as we get closer. We also are going to revitalize Gives Day. So on some level, there will be a presence inside the library the first Thursday of December, which is December 3rd. We'll also be putting together a challenge grant. And the way Gives Day works is that we set a minimum number of people to donate. And then if we reach that number, we secure a challenge grant, which is largely funded by the donors closest to us, like the board of directors and sometimes the board of trustees as well. So we'll be in touch about that as well. And then finally, we are still negotiating on the budget. The delay for us, even though our fiscal year started in July, has been around discussions about what's going to happen in the spring. We have identified that we do not have the capacity at this time with volunteers to hold an event. So for the time being, we have planned to do a direct ask fundraiser in the spring. We are anticipating at this time lower revenues as a result. We're going to use the time that we will not be devoting to event preparation to do some strategic planning. All of this is in conversation right now at the executive and the board level. So I will keep you posted, but I do want to say that given everything that I've heard tonight with James and his team, these are the kinds of things that could get our board and organization very fired up about our next iteration. And so we'd be delighted to continue our partnership and conversation with you about that. And I think that more or less covers my report. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Great. Well, it's good to see all of you.
Thanks so
And
much.
I'm going to turn my video off, but I am listening. I just want you to know I'm fighting with my husband who's Zooming upstairs. And so we're just,
We get it. Thanks so much.
that's the
Thanks
problem.
so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, let's go around. I'm happy to start. I attended the foundation's board meeting last week. And I also attended a meditation session that I thought was great with I think it was a professor from Stanford. So Trustee Lynn Harris.
I attended the Baywood Social and I want to echo everyone's thoughts on Aisha. I had a delightful 15-20 minute conversation with her. And she's just, it seems ideal for the role she's in. And we talked about a whole host of things and it was just a great treat. So that's what I have. Congratulations on that hire in that position. She will be spectacular, I'm sure.
Great, thank you. Trustee Diaz-Nash.
Thank you. And thank you, Rod, for coming to the Baywood Social. And thank you to Aisha and Jillian. I mean, they got so much more play. It was fantastic. So that was one thing I was going to talk about, and seeing them at the movies. I was also at a community workshop on the transition to district elections this past Saturday in the Oak Room at the library. And it was great to see the Oak Room in use again. And even better, the library was buzzing. And that was just wonderful to see. I really, really enjoyed that. I think we're just about ready to finalize our participation in a story walk. So Adriana and I will be working on that. So that's going to be a really exciting thing for our neighborhood. And I guess, Chair DeWinter, are you going to make any comments before the end of the meeting about the changing composition of our board?
I was going to let the remaining trustees speak.
Okay, I will wait for that.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure, thank you. Trustee Hill?
I'm very, very sorry to share with you, as I did earlier today, that this will be my last meeting. My love for the library and my respect for all of you and the work you do will continue. Although I gotta tell you that I'm kind of looking around for the library up here in Cloverdale, my new home. So I will continue to support San Mateo Library, but I'm looking for the library here, and I have seen a sign, but I haven't seen the building yet. But God bless all of you. I'm sorry to leave you.
Thank you, Don. I just want to say on a personal level, since we started here on the board the same day, that it's just been such a privilege to get to know you and to work with you on this board all these years. And I will definitely miss having you on the board.
Thank you.
I can't raise my hand, but I just have such affection for you and Ann, Don. It's just been such a delight to get to know you since I've been at the foundation, and I'm going to miss you both. I hope you'll be down here often to visit. And I promise that now that you're going to be a permanent resident up in Cloverdale, that we'll have to do a local inspection of the Healdsburg Cloverdale library system and rate it, figure out how we can make it as great as San Mateo.
Look forward to it.
Well, we wish you all the happiness in your new home.
Don, if I may, I want to thank you. I've only been on this, 6-7 months, but I really appreciate and I've learned from your insights and inspired by your commitment. Although I do find it interesting that you said in Cloverdale, you see the sign, but not the building. It's the opposite of the Marina Branch. Everyone can see the building, we don't have a sign.
We're getting a sign.
But no, thank you very, very much, Don. It's been a great treat, albeit too short a one selfishly from my standpoint.
Thanks, Rod.
I guess I should weigh in. Don and Lester, thank you so very, very much for your contribution, your commitment to the library. Don, I think it's been 7 years or something like that. When I was a kid and I went to the public library and basically it was an escape and it blew my mind. It really opened up my world. I had no idea of all the people in the community whose efforts and stewardship and commitment made that possible. I just didn't understand that. And now I have such a great respect for it and I understand it, that it is the library board, community members, people like the Simonitises who want to donate and give their time that make this opportunity possible for our community. And so it's just been a pleasure to get to know you, your passion for the Hillsdale Library. Although we haven't been able to do everything that you would like us to do, it has put it on my mind and on our radar, and I know that we can do more. I think that, I told Lester this, steel sharpens steel, right? So both of you all have made me think more in depth, think more about what the meaning of diversity is as far as age, experience and opportunity. And you are part of the library's DNA now. So thank you.
And I would love to second that and just say that we have all been so lucky to have both of you. And you both love the library for some of the same reasons, but some of the very different reasons. And you both bring very different things to the libraries. Lester, I told him that I love watching his brain think.
Mhm.
I can just sort of see it outside of his head going on, and what's going to come out next, and how the perspective. And Don, I love the fact that you have some very, very strongly held opinions about things related to the library that you are not at all shy about saying, but you always say it in such a way that it's full of love and open to learning. And you were one of the first people who welcomed me when I first got involved. But we are going to lose two of our most wonderful trustees, and hopefully we will gain some new ones, but we will never replace either one of you. So don't make yourself scarce, and I look forward to seeing you both at the tree trimming party in the fall.
Well, I know, Lester, that you want to make some remarks, and I'm going to let you do that and have the last word at this meeting. But I do want to say that ever since you came to the first board meeting before you were a trustee, and you asked if I had a few minutes to chat, and I have since then been a big supporter of yours. I know how much being on this board has meant to you. And I'm always interested to hear your opinions and insights, and you two will be missed. But I'm a little sad that both of you are leaving today. But I know that the future will be great for both of you, and we will miss you for sure.
Thank you to everyone else for the kind words, and thank you for the chance to close out with a few brief remarks. I like to begin with a quote. The actor and teacher Konstantin Stanislavski famously remarked, "There are no small parts, only small actors." This board is not often the leading actress of San Mateo City government, but it is the longest running. For over 127 years. This board's members have done their best to make this library the best for their fellow residents. And it's been an absolute honor to add my link to this long chain of service. 1 minute.
Take your time.
So as my time on this board comes to an end, I want to say farewell with some words of positivity, encouragement, and appreciation. Executive Director Esselstein, students of my alma mater take great pride in being the 6th member of the basketball team. And you have often been that 6th member, a true partner to this board, offering your insights from your broad experiences, and thank you for that. Director Moore, your dedication to learning and continually making yourself a better leader of this civic institution. It's a showcase for city government at its best. And inspiration.
Thank you, Lester.
Okay, let's get through this. Executive Assistant Gomez, your work is often unseen, but never unappreciated. Your clear notes and notices ensure we are transparent to the community whom we serve. I appreciate everyone for bearing with me.
Okay.
Transparent to the community whom we serve and retain your trust. And nothing good can come without trust. Trustee Lynn Harris, it's been rather invigorating to watch yourself throw yourself into this role, putting on your badge, seeking out community input, and thoroughly digesting every line of the meeting materials. You're truly modeling the platinum standard for all commission and board members. Trustee Hill, Trustee Diaz-Nast beat me to the punch. I also noticed your sense of practicality that keeps things moving, and your willingness to be contrarian helps us consider all the angles and do the right thing. And it's great that you keep us all grounded. Trustee Diaz-Nast, your boundless enthusiasm and support for the library are a tremendous source of energy that buoys us all, especially as we go late into the night, like on months like this one. Chair DeWinter, you set a quick pace and dispelled the myth that city government moves slowly. Your speedy and thorough work on the art policy and your successful efforts to bring more attention to the Marina Branch, it's really an example for us all, as is tonight, like your humility and sort of saying that, hey, we could have done things differently. Both are really great examples. And those city procedures constrain her from attending these meetings. Councilmember Pappen has been not just this board's liaison, but also its unwavering champion. I could not be more appreciative of her support and her guidance, especially during my year as chair of this board. And of course, I must mention my wife. Since she does not like being the center of attention, I will simply say that I'm grateful for her constant encouragement, even when it means ducking out of chores on the weekend to survey patrons at the branches. Finally, I ask my fellow trustees to continue to speak for the over 100,000 San Mateans who are not in this room. Please pay extra consideration to those who have less of a voice, and as you go into the community to get perspectives, as you provide input on who will next join this board, and as you weigh future decisions. Those 100,000 are depending on you to do the best for them. And with that, I'll end these remarks as I began them with a quote. I wish you all good night and good luck.
Thank you, Lester.
Thank you. We'll miss you.
Thank you so much, Lester. A great fitting end to our work together as a group. I will remember it. I might even start to cry too.
Me too.
Same.
I just want to say thank you to both of you, and you will be sorely missed. And it's been inspiring to see how hard you work for the library and the community. And your new communities and new libraries will be very lucky to have you.
Absolutely. And we know we'll keep in touch.
We will.
Indeed.
Right.
Been a pleasure and an honor
I
to the
think,
utmost.
I think I'm still supposed to do a little report also.
Good luck.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to say this. It's completely understandable. You give 7 years of your life to something and it's going to change. It's going to open up new vistas for you. But I completely understand being emotional about transitioning to something else after putting your heart and soul into something for 7+ years. So thank you so much for your commitment to San Mateo Public Library and to your city. I'll be very quick. So the annual impact report committee has convened to begin work on a 2021 report. The report is usually presented at the October meeting. I'm told that it will be prepared at that time this year. Our financial report, you may have noticed that we, the financial, fourth quarter financial report has not been presented. Our senior management analyst told me that they are being forced to wait because the city financial department has not closed the June, the June report yet. And so we have to wait, but she also anticipates that she will be able to present it at the October meeting. We may have to move it to November, given that we may not have many people at our October meeting. Reopening update is that we have set a goal to increase hours at the main library in early to mid-November. And we will know by Friday, I think, because I have the manager still working. 10 to open every day at 10, like we did before the pandemic. So to normalize our opening time, to extend to 8 on Monday and Tuesday and 7 on Wednesday and Thursday. So that will be adding back 8 hours, but that is not the full amount. We are facing some real challenges. We don't have enough staff right now because of the staff that we lost during the pandemic from a variety of ways. And the recruitments, getting pools of people willing to apply for the part-time jobs, which are usually very, very competitive. We're actually, my supervisors report they're having a very challenging time getting candidates. So we are going to have to stretch in every way that we can, but we think it's possible that we can extend hours in early November at Main Library by 8 hours a week, and again start opening at 10, and at least stay open to 8 a couple of nights a week and 7 a couple of others. The branches report, Aisha reported to me that she cannot extend hours at the branch that early. They are in a recruitment process and they just don't have enough staff. So they are going to stay where they are as far as hours until they can get some positions filled. She also did report that she feels like the demand is being met right now and that there's not a push, but we did want to extend hours at the branches. It's just not possible to do as early as November. And we hope that we may be able to do in December or at the start of the new year. And lastly, I am prepared to present the fine elimination recommendation at the November 15th City Council meeting. I believe it actually will be a part of a closed session. And I've submitted the summary of background report to Drew today, and he's going to get back to me to let me know if there's anything that needs to be changed. But at the latest, it will occur at the November 15th City Council meeting. I don't know, they may move me on to the November 1st. So that's all that I have. And thank you all for being patient.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I meant to have you go first, and I.
No problem. No problem at all. This is a special meeting.
All right. On that note, I think we are ready to conclude. So
All right.
thank you, everybody, so much. And
Thank you all.
take care, Lester.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Lester. Very, very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye,
and good
Lester.
luck.
Give our best to Renee too.
I will.
Yeah, take care.
See you soon, I hope.
Absolutely.
Lester, I never got to bring cookies or whatever I was supposed to bring at the after the first meeting. I kept thinking that when we meet in person, I was supposed to bring cookies or cake or something. We never had a meeting in person.
Well,
Maybe I'll drop some off sometime for you.
okay. Well,
That's what I'll do. Thank you.
sounds
And
good.
best wishes. It's been a joy.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
I echo that, Lester. Good night.
Good night.